Crazy. I've never gone live before, but I recorded a video on my phone and I realized it was super, super long, like 17 minutes long. So I didn't. I saw this, and this might be an easier way to do this because I can present right to the camera. Um, so I have some talking points, things that I wrote down to make sure to cover. Hopefully, I can do this in about 10 minutes. Would be better. So this is the new file server that I made for a friend. It is an external hard drive and a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus on top. It's in a case. I was able to take the hard drive out of the enclosure and then drill a couple holes through the hard drive enclosure. And I was able to use a little zip tie to hold the Raspberry Pi case to the enclosure. So it can sit up and have a little, kind of looks like a wart or a barnacle. I tried to make the cabling look pretty neat and concise. Don't need my phone there anymore. Anyway, somebody, what was it? It was Greg McIver. You asked to see this thing and how to do it, a guide. I don't have a guide. I have written documents that I make for myself just in case I ever forget what I'm supposed to do. I make them so that it's also easy to share with people too. So I have a whole folder on my drive that is all important things that I thought were good enough to keep. Anyway, the Raspberry Pi, I'll try to put it right here. The Raspberry Pi, it has a Samba server installed, and it's sharing video from the hard drive out over Samba. That way Windows machines can look at it, and just about anything else that supports network anything can do Samba. So that's a common one that I use. It also can be accessed over SSH. So if you were away or you were needed to add things or access it or turn it off or turn it on or whatever, reboot, you could do that over SSH. SSH is how you talk to it. You don't want to have, I don't want to have to plug in a keyboard, a mouse, and a screen. That to me is annoying. I want to be able to work at my desk and not have another screen plugged in. This hard drive is a 4 terabyte hard drive. We got it on Prime Day. It was only $80. And so I've just kind of copied all the stuff that I have collected and everything. I put them on this hard drive. And then I've got this Raspberry Pi does the work of sharing it out over the network. So this Ethernet cable is how the Raspberry Pi interfaces. That's how the Raspberry Pi is an intermediate step. Instead of you plugging in your hard drive to your TV like a noob, you can just access it over the network. Everybody can access it over the network from anywhere. So things that I like mine to be able to do. Be accessible over the network. I want to be able to add the content a few different ways. Move my chair here. So I want to be able to access it over Samba, which is a file sharing service. And I want to be able to, so read and write. I want to be able to do both. I want it to be secure from the outside of the network. So outside of the house, it's safe, relatively safe. I'm sure somebody could gain access, but it's relatively safe. And inside the network, it's not so safe because I don't want to have to put in passwords at every client that wants to view the content. I just want to be able to put in the address and boom, it's ready. So to do that, I always install SSH. On my server, you have to install it because it's a bare metal, like it's an actual computer. Where the Raspberry Pi with Raspbian, the operating system, you can just enable SSH. And that's one of the options in the configuration. Just turn it on and it's ready to go. I want to change the default password. The Raspberry Pi's default password is Raspberry. And anybody that knows that you've got that in there could just go and find it and get in there and do a bunch of stuff. So change that to something that people won't guess. Long or short, it doesn't matter. I find that part's not so important. What's important is that you've changed it and it's not the same one. not too short, obviously. Don't make it too short. And then I've got a USB hard drive plugged in. Even if you've got a regular SATA hard drive, Linux won't mount them automatically. They are unmounted until you try to access them, and then they're mounted. But if you're doing it over the network, you won't be able to access them from the local machine. So they have to be mounted automatically. So I have a guide for that helps me out. So make those drives mounted and usable when it boots up. It puts them where they're supposed to be. With a document, it's a text line. The FS tab on a Linux system is the file systems tab. So it tells the system where everything is and what it's supposed to do. And then I install and configure Samba. Samba is the Windows sharing thing. So I can share these videos to a Windows machine. I can share them to a Linux machine, share it to a Mac machine. But Samba is the way I do that. I've been doing that for a long time, and I know there's other ways to do it, but Samba works for me pretty well on the local network. It doesn't do on the internet. Samba won't do over the internet. For that, you need SSH. And then something that I do that's not specifically necessary, but it's super cool. I set up SSH keys, and I configure rsync to grab the new files from my machine. Anything I put on my new folder, when I download a movie or something, I'll put it on there, and I'll put it in the new folder, and then I will put it every night. The slave machines, my brother's got one, and my friend's got one, and my dad's got one, and now this one here exists. So every night they will grab new movies and put them on their hard drive. So it'll copy it over SSH. So it's secure and encrypted, and it's all safe and ready to go. So I think that was much quicker than I've done before. I think 10 minutes shorter. I will see if I can't link those Google documents in the bottom, and you can kind of follow along as you need to. You can ask questions and stuff. I think it's a really fun hobby, and if you were into that kind of thing, having your own kind of personal Netflix, things that you've collected and you've ripped and you've curated, this digital library for yourself, it's definitely a fun thing to do, and it's relatively cheap. So getting the hardware is pretty cheap, and everything works out pretty well. Anyway, I'll end this, and I'll put those links in the bottom, and that way you can see them. So, Greg, that's for you. I'll link this video to the Instagram thing so you can see that, and that way you can ask your questions as you have them. All right. Thanks. Bye.